Okay, so imagine this. A family, living a perfectly normal life one day. They're in their new house. Everything seems fine, plans for the future. And then the next day, they're just gone.
Completely vanished.
Yeah, no trace, no note, nothing. Just this empty house that basically whispers this chilling, unsolved riddle. Today, we're really plunging into one of the most perplexing and frankly heartbreaking true crime cases in recent memory, the disappearance and then the eventual grim discovery of the McStay family. Our mission here is to meticulously piece together what happened, the vanishing itself, the baffling twists in the investigation, and then those horrific revelations that finally came to light.
It really is.
It's a story that just defies easy answers, lives this cold trail of questions even after a conviction was made.
And this case truly stands as, well, a stark example of how quickly an ordinary narrative can just shatter. It led to this long, arduous investigation, fraught with misdirection and ultimately these devastating truths that just challenged every single initial assumption.
Every single one.
It forces us, I think, to confront that unsettling reality of how abruptly life can turn sinister.
And what a journey it was for investigators, for the family. Let's set the scene. We need to go back to February 2010.
Right.
We're in Fallbrook, California. It's described as this quiet, almost idyllic community. This is where Joseph McStay, who is 40, his wife Summer, 43, and their two very young sons, Gianni, just 4, and little Joseph Jr., barely 3 years old. They'd recently moved into their new home.
Only been there a few months, hadn't they?
Exactly. Just 4 months. Still settling in, really, building their lives there. Joseph, he was a successful businessman, owned and operated earth-inspired products. They made these decorative water fountains.
Yeah, custom pieces.
Yeah.
Pretty high-end, I understand.
Very. Business was thriving, apparently. Clients even as far away as Saudi Arabia. He had built this company with help from a trusted friend, Don Kavanaugh, and he employed a welder, a contractor named Chase Merritt. Joseph apparently spoke very highly of Merritt.
So on the surface, everything looked perfect.
The American dream, right? That's what it looked like from the outside.
When you look at that stability, the successful business, the new home, the young kids, the sudden, unexplained silence becomes just profoundly unnerving. It wasn't just like a missed call here or there. It was a complete uncharacteristic void.
Yeah.
A total departure from what was normal for this family.
Yeah.
And that immediate, unnatural quiet.
Yeah.
That's often the first and most powerful sign that something is terribly, terribly wrong.
And that silence, that unnerving quiet, it really started to echo around February 4th, 2010. Relatives started calling, trying to reach them, but the calls just went straight to voicemail. Every time. At first, maybe not outright panic. Maybe they took a spontaneous trip, a quick getaway.
You try to rationalize it.
Exactly. But as the days ticked by, still no word, no return calls. Joseph's brother, Mike McStay, he grew really concerned. So on February 8th, Mike drove over to their Fallbrook home himself to check in. And what he found immediately just deepened that unease. The dogs. The family's 2 dogs, a golden retriever and a Great Pyrenees. They were just out in the yard, unattended. Mike's first thought, even then, was still maybe an extended vacation. He even moved their dog bowls, just to see if someone else was stopping by to feed them,
Testing the waters.
Yeah. He went back the next day, saw the bowls had been refilled, felt a bit relieved. Okay, someone is looking after them. So he left a note asking whoever it was to please contact him because he was really worried.
And it turned out animal control had already been involved.
Right. They'd already been called and were stopping by daily to feed the dogs. They hadn't found anyone home either and were worried maybe the family had been in an accident or something. But still, no sign of the McStays themselves.
And the scene inside the house, when authorities finally went in, it was just a study in unsettling normalcy mixed with these, bizarre little details.
What did they find?
Well, there was popcorn on the couch, like mid-movie snack. 2 bowls of uneaten eggs on the kitchen counter. A lamp knocked over somewhere. And the master bedroom closet. That presented a really strange picture. You had several open suitcases with clothes neatly folded inside, like they were packing for a trip.
Okay, so packing.
But then also just a large amount of clothing tossed all over the floor. It was incongruous.
Weird.
Very. Yet, crucially, the initial report from investigators was no overt signs of a struggle, no forced entry, nothing obvious like that. And that initial assessment, or perhaps misassessment, it became this critical pivot point. It shaped the whole early direction of the investigation.
Oh, so?
While the absence of immediate, obvious violence steered their focus away from treating it as a crime scene and towards, something else entirely.
And that decision, not treating the home as the crime scene right away. I mean, vital forensic opportunities could have been lost right there at the start.
Absolutely. Potential evidence compromised or overlooked.
So instead, the first significant lead that popped up pointed in a totally different direction, one that seemed to offer a simple, if maybe a bit perplexing, explanation.
The neighbor's camera.
Exactly. A neighbor's surveillance camera caught footage. It seemed to show the McStay family's 1996 Isuzu Trooper leaving their home on February 4th. But the key detail, the really frustrating part, was that the people inside the vehicle were obscured. You just couldn't definitively tell who was driving or who was in there.
Frustratingly close yet so far.
Right. And then, just a few days later, February 8th, the trooper itself turns up.
Right.
In a parking lot near San Ysidro, California, which, as you know, is extremely close to the Mexican border.
Okay.
Security guards there later reported it might have been parked sometime between, say, 5:04 and 7 p.m. that evening. This discovery was huge, a bombshell, really. It sent authorities down a path that would dominate the case for years.
Yeah, this specific discovery, right near the border, and then combined with the video evidence that came next, it quickly solidified this official narrative, a narrative that, well, in hindsight, was compelling, but ultimately deeply misleading.
What was the video?
So on March 5th, 2010, deputies released this grainy surveillance video. It showed a group of 4 people, looked like a man, a woman, 2 small children crossing into Mexico on foot. This was supposedly around 7 p.m. on February 8th.
And they believed it was the McStays.
The San Diego Sheriff's Department publicly announced that, based on this video, they believed the McStays had left for Mexico voluntarily, period.
Voluntarily walked away.
That was the official line. And it seemed bolstered by other finds, too. They found recent internet searches on the family computer. Searches for travel to Mexico, information on children's passports, done just days before they vanished. So the official conclusion was drawn. They just chose to walk away from their lives.
I mean, that theory, even at the time, it immediately faced pretty significant doubt, right? Especially from people who knew the family well.
Oh, absolutely.
Why would a successful family, no known major financial troubles, this loving network, why suddenly abandon everything, their business, the new house, their pets, their whole lives, and just walk into Mexico without telling a soul?
It didn't add up for many.
Mike McStay, Joseph's brother, and other family members, they were very vocal about their skepticism. They pointed out that the man in that border video, he looked too tall, maybe too thin to be Joseph.
The physical description didn't quite match for them.
Yeah. And while there were a few sort of unconfirmed sightings reported in Mexico later, nothing ever panned out. Nothing concrete. The complete lack of contact just didn't sit right with anyone close to them.
The official narrative felt convenient, maybe, but incomplete. It didn't fully account for who this family was.
So the case just languished for 3 agonizing years. The families left clinging to hope, while investigators seem to have basically closed the book, assuming they just left.
A painful limbo.
Until November 11th, 2013. Then the mystery took this chilling, completely unexpected turn. It shattered that whole voluntary departure theory with just brutal finality.
What happened?
A motorcyclist, riding through a remote area of the Mojave Desert out in San Bernardino County, huge, vast desert, he stumbled upon something horrific.
Human remains.
Human remains. He reported it immediately. Forensic investigators, including a forensic anthropologist, swarmed the scene.
And what unfolded then was this painstaking, horrific recovery process. Investigators worked, day and night, meticulously excavating 2 shallow grave sites they found out there.
Graves.
2. And on November 15th of 2013, the San Bernardino County Sheriff, John McMahon, had to deliver the news everyone had dreaded, but perhaps started to suspect. The remains found in the desert belonged to Joseph, Summer, Joseph Jr., and Gianni McStay. All 4 of them.
Oh, God.
Dental records confirmed the adults. DNA verified the children and causes of death, determined by the forensic examination. They painted this picture of just unspeakable violence, utterly contradicting any idea they left willingly.
How? How did they die?
Joseph's body. It was found with a white extension cord wrapped around his neck, strangulation. Summer's skull was fractured. And one of the little boys, his tiny skull had been bludgeoned 7 times.
7 times.
Adding to the horror, they found a 3-pound sledgehammer buried there, near the graves, believed to be the murder weapon.
A little sledgehammer.
The desert had held this dark, terrible secret, a truth far more sinister than anyone had initially imagined.
So that discovery in the desert, it didn't just solve a missing persons case, obviously. It ignited a full-blown murder investigation.
Everything changed.
A year after the bodies were found, the focus of that new inquiry really narrowed. It finally led them to a key individual. In November 2014, San Bernardino County Sheriff's investigators announced a major breakthrough: the arrest of Charles Chase Merritt.
The business associate.
The very same one. Joseph McStay's business associate, the welder, the contractor Joseph had apparently spoken so highly of. This arrest just sent shockwaves because Merritt hadn't really been considered a person of interest initially. Not seriously. He was just known, an acquaintance, part of Joseph's professional life.
It's chilling, isn't it, to look back and see how those seemingly minor details from the early days, Merritt's finances, the gambling, Joseph may be planning to fire him, they suddenly loom so large.
They shift, yeah.
From background noise right to the center stage, motive. Prosecutors allege Merritt's motive was purely financial gain.
How much money was involved?
Well, Joseph McStay had nearly $100,000 in his bank account. Merritt, on the other hand, was reportedly in deep debt, had a serious gambling problem, and owed Joseph a significant amount, around $30,000. Money Joseph had lent him, apparently, to cover those gambling debts.
Okay, so there's a debt.
And Don Kavanaugh, Joseph's longtime friend and business partner, he gave crucial testimony. Said Joseph had confided in him just before the disappearance that he was planning to fire Merritt. So this impending firing, combined with that outstanding debt, it painted a pretty clear picture for the prosecution. A desperate man, potentially, with a powerful motive.
And what about forensic evidence? Was there anything linking Merritt directly?
That was pivotal for the prosecution. They meticulously traced Merritt's cell phone activity. Using cell tower data, they placed his phone near those remote desert graves around the time they believed the bodies were buried.
Wow, okay. That's big.
Huge. It directly undermined his claims of innocence, put him, or at least his phone, right there.
Anywhere else?
Yes. Merritt's DNA was found on the steering wheel and the gear shift of the McStay's Isuzu Trooper, the one found near the border.
So he was in the car.
Placing him inside that vehicle after the family vanished, directly linking him to that initial misdirection towards Mexico.
Anything else about his background?
Yeah, adding to this, Merritt wasn't exactly clean. He had prior felony convictions, burglary, receiving stolen property. Sure. Including a 2001 conviction for stealing about $32,000 worth of equipment. And detectives also noted something chillingly suspicious from Merritt right at the beginning. Just 2 days after the family was reported missing, he was apparently already referring to Joseph McStay in the past tense.
Oh, wow. That's, yeah.
A subtle thing, maybe, but deeply unsettling in retrospect. It spoke volumes.
So the trial for Chase Merritt, he was 61 by then. It finally started in January 2019. That's nearly 9 years after the McStays vanished.
A long time coming.
Charged with 4 counts of murder, faced the death penalty, and he maintained his innocence vehemently throughout the whole thing.
The legal proceedings were apparently quite drawn out. Lots of delays. Merritt tried to slow things down, fired his attorneys multiple times, even tried to represent himself at one point, citing ill health.
A real battle in the courtroom.
A long, emotional, complex battle, yes, with both sides presenting their cases in vivid detail.
Now, even with that evidence, the phone pings, the DNA, the motive, the defense still fought hard, right? Alternate theories must have come up.
Well, absolutely. And it's important to understand why doubts or other theories can persist, even after a conviction. The defense strategy, it meticulously targeted specific ambiguities, any gaps they could find.
Like what?
Well, Merritt's attorneys aggressively attacked the prosecution's case, tried to create reasonable doubt wherever they could. They suggested someone else's greed was responsible for this horrific crime. They specifically pointed fingers at Don Kavanaugh, Joseph's friend and business associate, claiming investigators had overlooked him as a prime suspect.
Kavanaugh, but didn't he?
Exactly. That line of defense ultimately crumbled because Kavanaugh had a solid, verifiable alibi. He was actually in Hawaii when the McStays disappeared. That was confirmed independently.
Yeah.
Made it very hard for the defense to keep pushing that theory.
Right. So after all this, years of searching, that grim discovery, the high-profile trial, the conviction, what does it all really mean for understanding this case? Because even with Merritt convicted, there are still some profoundly chilling questions left hanging, aren't there? Questions that keep fueling speculation.
There certainly are.
Like, for instance, if Chase Merritt did act alone, as the prosecution argued, why kill the entire family? Why the little kids? The financial motive seems, well, almost disproportionate to that level of brutality, wiping out everyone.
That's a major question, the scale of the violence versus the proposed motive.
Then there's the where. Where did the murders actually happen?
Yeah.
Despite that sort of weird scene at the house, the popcorn, the eggs, no real conclusive evidence of a violent struggle, like significant blood spatter, was ever found there.
Right. The house was messy, but not definitively a murder scene.
Yeah. So the absence of a clear primary crime scene, that's still a significant point of contention for some. And finally, the logistics. How did one person supposedly transport 4 bodies, 2 adults, 2 small children, all the way out to that remote spot in the Mojave Desert, alone?
The sheer physical difficulty of that feat raises serious questions. It leads some to believe maybe he didn't act alone, or it feeds doubts about his guilt altogether.
Exactly. These unanswered questions, even with a verdict, they just ensure the McStay family tragedy continues to captivate and, frankly, haunt people. This deep dive into the McStay family mystery, it really shows us, doesn't it, how quickly a seemingly normal, almost idyllic life can just shatter into a million pieces, leaving behind this terrifying trail of confusing clues, misdirection, and ultimately a discovery too horrific for words.
It truly is.
It's a testament, I suppose, to the power of perseverance in investigations, even when the answers you find are deeply, deeply unsettling. And it reminds us of the profound impact of a crime that maybe still holds some secrets.
The journey from that baffling disappearance to the gruesome discovery and then the difficult conviction. It's just harrowing. And what's truly haunting here, I think, are not just the facts we've managed to uncover, but those enduring questions. Questions about human intent, the limits of justice, and maybe what parts of a mystery like this might always remain just beyond our reach. It really challenges us, doesn't it, to consider, in cases this complex, this tragic, what truly constitutes a complete understanding? And how do we live with the pieces that just never quite seem to fit?
A difficult thought to end on. We hope this deep dive into the McStay case has given you some new insights, maybe some things to think about. Thank you so much for exploring this with us today.
Thank you.
If you found this deep dive intriguing and maybe a little unsettling, please do make sure to like this discussion. Share it with others who you think might appreciate a deep dive into a complex mystery. And definitely subscribe to the Deep Dive channel for more explorations into these kinds of complex topics. We really look forward to diving in with you again very soon.